asset or a liability? There are many things that you might think are assets when they actually aren't, and knowing what's what is actually pretty simple. So when somebody says your house is an asset, as in your home is an asset, the house you live in, is it an asset? What do you think? Well, the answer is no. How about your car? Is your car an asset? I mean, it holds value, doesn't it? It's worth something. Answer? No. Not if it's your personal car, although it can be different. So why is that? In broadest terms, the answer is an asset is something which puts money in my pocket on a day-to-day basis. So every day it needs to be gaining money, it needs to give you money. A liability is something which costs me money on a day-to-day basis. So if you take start price, end price, and everything between, it's each day in a positive or a negative equity. So when people are talking about your personal house, you might feel like, oh, it's going up in value, well, ever so slightly, and it's got value in it, so it's an asset, right? I can always sell it. But every single day that house is costing you in just general maintenance, so upkeep, decoration. As you wear it out, you need to replace things. It's costing you in mortgage, say mortgage interest, council tax. Every single day has outgoings, and it's costing you. So your house is not your asset, but when they say it's an asset, it's actually an asset to the bank, because if you've got mortgage, you're paying interest to the bank to have it, and the bank essentially owns it until you've paid that off. So your house is the bank's asset, not your asset. Your own car, it's the same thing. You own it, it's got money in it, but it's not putting money in your pocket. It's not making you money. Exception to this would be the taxi. You've guessed it. So if your personal car was a taxi, it's doing all the things that your car is doing. However, because this taxi driver is using that to earn his money, that's his tool, that's his job. So when he's using it day to day, hopefully, if he's a good enough taxi driver, he will be earning money back by using it. So when he's using that as a taxi, basically, that is an asset, because every day, or most of the days, maybe not when it's the weekend and he's not taxiing, or weekday, when he's using it, it's bringing in money. Now if you average that over the week, say, with his off days, more days than not, it's making the money. So a taxi to a taxi driver would be an asset. Once you've understood these things, you look at each item you have and decide whether it's an asset or a liability. Liability, obviously you want to cut down because it's costing you money, and you want to buy more in the way of assets, so that's where property comes in. You want to get more and more property, as they are assets, they're quite big assets. and you want it to bring in money on a day-to-day basis. When it stops getting rented out and it's empty, it's all of a sudden become a liability, and it's a big one at that if you're having to pay bills and council tax, etc. So that becomes a big liability. So going back to my video on is property risky, the people that have one property, it's an asset as long as it's rented, but when it's not rented, it's a liability, and it's a big one. If you only have the one property, you will probably have to pay those bills out of your own pocket. Whereas if you had more of them, it averages out over the different properties. So individually, that one property is a liability, it's taking away money. But say you had a bigger portfolio of 5, 10 properties, then that one liability won't make as much of a dent because the other ones have cancelled it out in a way. So that's where it's important to begin to expand and get out. So you get your first one, it's making you money, save up, get another one, and you'll get safer. Or theoretically you should get safer as you go. So yeah, that's in a nutshell the difference between assets and liabilities. Make sure you understand it. There's not a lot to understand. Assets, put money in my pocket on a day-to-day basis. Liabilities, take money out of my pocket on a day-to-day basis. Simple as. Stay tuned for the next video. Where we can learn a little more. I'll tell you something you might just find interesting. Stay tuned. See you soon. Bye bye.